Okay, this is now the 5 Minute Tarot for the 14th of March 2017. And today's card is the Eight of Pentacles, or the Eight of Coins. And if you look at the picture, we've got this fellow sitting outside, and he's sitting on a bench. He's got a chisel and hammer in his hand, and he seems to be making the same thing over and over again. And there are 7 on display. And I think it's safe to assume that he made the coins that are on display. It's not the first time he's made a coin, or he's made whatever it is that he's making. So to look at this card and the activity in the card, there are a few points that we can make that can then be applied to the answer to the question that has been asked. And part of it, because we've got 8 coins and they all look kind of similar, the card can make us think about repetition and doing the same thing over and over again. Or maybe it's about the value of repetition, so that the first time we do something, we can maybe do it, but we don't do it as well as we can come to do it after we've done the same thing several times. So again, maybe it's your first romance. You're probably not going to be that good at it because you don't have the experience. But if you've had a few romances, then ideally you're going to get better with each experience, with each romance. You learn something, and you can bring that understanding of the knowledge, of the awareness to the new relationship. So there's something about the value of repetition, and it can also be maybe with the Eight of Pentacles reversed, it's the person who thinks they ought to get it the first time they try it. You know, you do something once. Let's say you want to play the piano, and you try to play the piano, and you mess up a couple of notes, and you give up because you think, I'm never going to get it. And that can be the Eight of Pentacles reversed, where you don't want to practice, you don't want to have to repeat the same activity over and over again in order to get better, in order to improve. So this Eight of Pentacles can be pointing out that we need that with the situation that's been asked about, you need to practice. You need to try more than once before you're going to get the hang of it, or before you're going to get the result that you want, or before you're going to get the quality that you're maybe looking for. Because part of it with this Eight of Pentacles probably is about developing skill. So you can be, even if you're born with an ability to do something, or you have a knack for it, we could say, you probably still need to develop skill. And you get that through repetition, and probably through making an effort. Yesterday we did that Celtic Cross, and the card that may come was the Strength card. And when I was setting up, or when I was writing down the cards that came up, I thought with the Strength card, because of its position, because of the question, how do you develop a spiritual understanding? We can say, people talk about spiritual understanding all the time, but who knows what it actually means. So I sometimes wonder how I could explain it, or how I would explain it to somebody. And maybe it's about standards, about having high standards, right? So you can have, and I'm thinking of a story by Neville Shute. It's called Round the Bend. And in it, there was this teacher fellow called Constance. And he was showing, among other things, he was showing mechanics, or trying to get them to do good work fixing and repairing aircraft after the Second World War. And he was making the point that in some areas of life, you can cut corners, or you can put things together, and if it lasts for 5 minutes, that's good enough. But when it comes to repairing aircraft, where there's lives involved, you can't just do a quick fix and keep your fingers crossed it's going to last. So that you have to hold yourself to a higher standard, so that if you're bolting two pieces of metal together, you must get the right size screw and the right size bolt, and make sure that they're fully interlocked and that they're fully secured in place. Somebody else who isn't a mechanic might choose the wrong size, and because it looks okay, and they don't really care. But if you're going to be an aircraft mechanic, you have to hold yourself to a higher standard. And that's a bit that I think relates in some way to the Eight of Pentacles as well, because he's not just doing the same thing over and over again and not really thinking about it and not really caring. But he's developing himself and his method and his mentality, because he's focused and concentrated on what he's doing, and he's not doing it in a half-hearted kind of a way. There's a video on YouTube. I can't remember what it's called. I'll see if I can find it and put it in the description. But it's the right way to sweep a floor. And it's quite interesting, because you think, it's just sweeping a floor. But the fellow does a whole video on the correct way to sweep a floor. And it's very interesting. And that's kind of a bit like the meaning that goes along with his Eight of Pentacles. You need or if you make yourself have and obey high standards, it'll go well. Okay, don't want to go on too long, so I'll stop now, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.